Welcome to another live coaching call with Nido Marketing. We are so excited to have a couple guests with us here. We tried a couple weeks ago, had some glitches, and unfortunately today we have another glitch. My camera's not working, but Jordan, Kathy, your camera is. So at least we're here, we can hear you, and we're so excited to have you join us. Thank you so much for taking time out of your busy schedule to be here.
Our pleasure.
We're absolutely thrilled to be here with you.
Perfect. So we've got Kathy Minardi and George Markham, and they are with the Whole School Leadership Institute. And we're going to learn all about what that is, what that means, and what exciting offerings it has for the Montessori world, especially Montessori administrators and leadership. But before we dive in, Kathy and George, if you wouldn't mind just giving us a little background, of your Montessori experience, and also just what you're really passionate about overall, and related to, of course, the Whole School Leadership Institute.
Okay. George, why don't you go first?
Okay. Thanks for the opportunity. Yeah, I as many folks know in the Montessori community that I work with, I came from a Montessori background, head of school of two different schools for about 11 years, and got very involved with professional development and event work with a lot of Montessori organizations. Through my work with the Montessori Administrators Association, got to know Kathy and a lot of other wonderful folks in our community. And the Whole School Leadership Institute, which is a new undertaking, which you'll learn more about today, is an amazing opportunity for individuals who either are or want to be school administrators to really understand and to be well equipped for that job. You know, after having been at a couple of schools, and I'm sure any of you out there who are heads of school will agree with this, it's a very difficult job, and it goes beyond, to make a school succeed these days, it goes beyond management. It really becomes very strategic, and it becomes very necessary to understand leadership and how to work with so many different stakeholders and all the demands of the job. And so I got real excited when I was able to connect with Kathy to help. This is a program which is targeted just at that, to really enable Montessorians to really succeed in ways that, are a real challenge in running a school. And Kathy can tell you how that works a lot better than I can.
Thank you, George. Kathy, why don't you go ahead and give us a little background? Tell us about you.
So I grew up in Minnesota, and Deneen and I just learned that we are living not too far from each other from where I grew up, and so my trajectory early in my career was that I attended St. Olaf College. I had been an American Field Service foreign exchange student in Norway. I was lucky enough to be chosen to go on that program. And when I came back, I was very interested in going to St. Olaf. And during my junior year, I did a special independent study of what, I guess you could call alternative methods of education. And I went to London to do that because there were many experiments going on. And that's as a junior in college is when I first met the Montessori world and became very interested in it. So I went on in my career to run a tiny program, Montessori program in Cleveland for a short bit, and then moved to Florida and ran quite a large school Montessori program in Florida for nearly 20 years. And then had an opportunity to come to Washington, D.C. and was the head of school at Aiden Montessori School, right in the heart of Washington, for close to another 20 years. That school was the second oldest Montessori school running in the U.S., so that was a real privilege. And so I guess in terms of where my interest in leadership began, I would share with you that in the mid 80s, the school I was running was at a kind of a challenge in its life in terms of things not really syncing up. It wasn't feeling like a healthy community. And there were a lot of tensions and conflicts, both among the parent community and among the Montessori guides and staff. And our school endured an incredible tragedy. A little boy in our school died. And that's a longer story, but what it led to was a discovery of the fact that in a tragedy, a community can come together in such a beautiful way. It's almost overwhelming. And I began to ask how we could be like this without a tragedy. And when I asked that question, the universe sent me a brochure that very day. And that brochure invited me to study for a week with Scott Peck, Dr. Scott Peck, if you've heard of him, in the science of community building. And there, during that time, began my whole personal study of organizational leadership and all that goes with that. Doing that on the outside of my Montessori work and bringing it back to the school and learning just how all that worked. So for 35 years, I have been in this field of Montessori administration as well as organizational leadership. So it became a life passion to discover that actually Montessori, actually leadership as a field today is very congruent with the scientific pedagogy that Montessori developed for the child. I would be sitting in a course at Harvard and we would be talking about organizational methods for building trust and understanding and social cohesion among a group of adults. And I would think, oh my gosh, they're just describing Montessori. And so began applying those same principles to the adult community in the school. So that has been a lifetime of work, and I'm so happy to get to share it at Whole School Leadership now.
Right. Oh, what a beautiful story, Kathy. And it gets me thinking, and both, you and George have so much experience as an administrator, especially in Montessori. Are there specific challenges that you've had, and George, feel free to chime in as well, throughout the process that helped you? I'm sure the answer is yes, but that has helped you shape your approach to what you're going to do in whole school leadership, ultimately to help administrators through the struggles that they may experience or have already experienced?
Well, I think that's a great question. And first of all, Montessori focused on observation as the key to really understanding the patterns of growth and change, not only among the child's community, but each individual child. And so observation is critical if you are looking at a whole school as a living system. And so the development of oneself as an observer and the ability to stand back and, in some leadership practices, they talk about standing on the balcony and looking down. And so that ability to calm oneself, be a non-anxious presence, and observe before entering into the system is an art, and it's a very valuable one before we approach that particular challenge. So that's just one little piece I would share.
I'm excited to hear how high school leadership will really approach it. George, are you still with us? George, are you there?
I am back now, I hope.
Perfect. Good. So do you have any thoughts, George, just about some challenges that you may have experienced and maybe some words of wisdom moving forward for administrators in whole school leadership?
Yeah, and I apologize. I just had a little connection problem, so I may be repeating what Kathy said or disagreeing with what Kathy said. Yeah, as I mentioned earlier, it really becomes, I think, so clear to people who are trying to take their school to the next level that it goes so far beyond management. It's just, there are all these things you have to deal with as a school administrator that are important and we have taken care of in terms of the logistics and the finances and the legal and all that. But really what makes the difference is a real understanding of how to connect with people, understanding of what true leadership means and how you build consensus and these skills that are so important and necessary. And from what the program that Kathy and her associates have put together and the learning that they've acquired and understanding systems and understanding relationship building, that sort of thing is so critical to success. And that's why I get really excited about this program and looking forward to attending it myself.
Yeah, fantastic. Good. So tell me, who is this program for and why is it so important along your professional journey?
Yeah, the program is specifically for those that are in an administrative role in leading a school, be that public charter, private, independent. And so that's the main thing. But it's also applicable really to those leading Montessori other organizations. So there's several people coming who are just leading other efforts and initiatives, and they want to have a better understanding of how to build a healthy community to support the work that they're doing. So really anyone in a leadership role, that could even be a Montessori teacher who is the lead in terms of their division in the school, kind of the empowered leader of all the elementary guides and that type of thing. It depends on how big a school is in terms of how the leadership is divided up, but really at any level, we all lead. And hopefully in the future, as the world evolves, we will move more and more away from hierarchical management and more into self-management, which is what we created for the children. We created Montessori developed self-managing systems. And so that's an encouraging idea for us in our own adult leadership to evolve to that point. So it's really for everyone, but will be enormously valuable for people leading schools. One of the things that is very interesting from the scientific field is Fritjof Capra. If you've heard of Fritjof Capra, he was the great physicist who has worked with biologists to really go deeply into human living systems. And so in his later years, he has filled out a lot of what Montessori was beginning to see way before quantum physics even started, and observed that organizations have two natures. So he really describes the two natures as the first nature being the business nature or the legal nature. You can't exist without it. And you need to be, licensed, and the public needs to be assured that you are who you say you are. And then the other nature, which is so true of a Montessori school, is that it is a complex living human system. And that means that it's constantly swirling at every couple of seconds between and among all of the human beings that are there. And that is complex. So having an understanding at whatever level you are in a school of how you guide that complexity, how you guide that constantly living networking system of human beings is what this course, the courses are offering, and also what is valuable really to anyone in Montessori.
Right. How exciting. What an amazing program to offer, because I imagine many administrators feel that way, where, you know, it is so complex and it's hard to get everything done at the end of the day. There's always this long to-do list, and sometimes it feels like it's never enough, you know, that what you give. And so to have the knowledge of being able to sit back, observe, take what's arriving to you in the moment and into the bigger picture, and being able to address that in a way that not only leads the people around you, but you lead yourself through it.
Yes.
And I imagine that's going to be a very big part of this program.
Yes.
In helping Montessorians. I'm curious, Kathy, are there, for your current enrollees, do you have people that are not Montessorians that are in this program yet?
No, there are 22 people who have, almost all of them have gone through the program. There's one small cohort that's graduating this summer, and then all 22 of those individuals would have U.S. Montessori leaders, public and private, and then a few from outside of the country. But as a matter of fact, I was a part of the Margaret Wheatley's Warriors for the Human Spirit program for 3 years, which was a beautiful effort to grow within and become the warriors for the human spirit, which all Montessorians are. And I met a woman there who runs a corporate consulting company, and she became so interested in the course and that her consultants didn't really have this work under their belt that she asked me to teach her consultants. And I have done that. And I was a little afraid at first to work with corporate consultants because I've always been in the school world. But my gosh, it offered them so much. You just saw such opening to a level of understanding of human systems, human beings all together in one workplace, and how to work with them differently than they had ever thought of before. And so I've seen it, they haven't been in my original school cohorts, but I've seen it applied to whoever you are, wherever you are in terms of leadership. So,
Right, absolutely.
that's
And Janine, I don't, may not have been mentioned yet, but I think it's important to point out too that in a program like this, obviously you have these world-class presenters, which is wonderful to hear, but you also have all these folks that are there with you going through the program. And, you know, the interactions, the dynamics of that, the way you learn from each other, the relationships you build, which last, you know, can last for a lifetime after that. That's really important as part of the process, and the way it's structured and the way Kathy leads it is there's a lot of opportunity for that kind of interaction. Kathy might want to mention about the think tank, some of the dynamics around that. But you know, that's a program like this really, because it really is very cutting edge thinking. You know, it's you know, coming out of MIT. You know, it's just really interesting in terms of the understanding of the way things work in leadership. And you know, it is good. So it's going to attract a lot of very interesting people, very talented people, and people that you can interact and share with and learn from and teach as well.
Yeah, that is a
Right.
beautiful observation of the program. And just over the last 3 years with the 3 cohorts that I was working with, it almost felt like by the 3rd or 4th module, I didn't need to be there. they were so close and collaborative. They had learned to collaborate in a way that they probably never had in their lifetime. And now they were in it. And it became a very generative place. And it happened each time. So I've seen it replicate over and over. The value of having collegial collaboration is just wonderful, and awful that we don't have it in our roles, because we tend to be all by ourselves, as the one who's leading the whole school. So that they have stayed together and help each other to this day. Um, the think tank that we devised for the Whole School Leadership Institute offerings each and every time is an innovation, a prototype. And so as a prototype, it is a way of creating space for a group of people who want to come in and just put their heads together and try to evolve a particular area that they want to focus on. So we won't be teaching in that think tank. It's just going to be a place, a space to be able. Let's say you know two other people that want to focus on a new way of approaching parent education in your school, and you'd like to pull those people together, so everybody gets on a plane and you show up and we create the space, and you have a very inexpensive place to lay out your work and to stay for the full 2 weeks of the sessions, or as short or long as you want. And so that it might be off the ground this summer, or it might not, but I think it's going to start to grow an interest in the fact that we have so much more work to do in our Montessori world, and that could be a place that's inexpensive to just come together and work on a project. And then also this summer is a course for people who have not had a pedagogical background, they haven't taken teacher training. There is AMI is credentialing a course in Montessori Administrative Certificate, and that is a foundation course in pedagogy with an administrative lens in terms of how to support that pedagogy now that I more deeply understand it. And so that is directly for people who do not have a teacher training, but they may be running a school or planning to open a school.
Is this the AMI course?
Yes. Yes.
Awesome. We just had Uma and Susan on our call last week about that course. So,
well, no, it's not the same course.
Okay. Okay.
It's interesting. So AMI developed this administrative certificate course long before the one that is being piloted at Mint. That's new off the ground, and it is being piloted partly for the purpose of anyone who wants to go to teacher training has to take that first. So they get the whole continuum. And this course, this administrative certificate, AMI supported because there were so many countries around the world who were deciding to open Montessori schools, but they didn't have a foundation in the pedagogy. So up until now, it hasn't been in the US. It's been in other countries, primarily in Asia. So I've gone to China several times to teach that course to sometimes 100 Montessori owners who own a Montessori school but don't have the background. And so it's been very valuable to people who want to open a school or run a school, but they cannot or don't take the teacher training.
Right. Yeah. Thank you for that distinction.
They're a little bit different because this is strictly for administrators.
Sure. Good to know. So why don't we dive into the details, the juicy details of the program? How is it structured? You know, what are the courses involved? What is the timeline? All of that. But before we do that, I just wanted to remind participants you're welcome to chat in any questions that you have as Kathy and George are talking about it. You know, again, we're going to dive into the details, but any questions you have about it, please be sure to chat in.
Okay.
Perfect. All right, so George or Kathy, which one of you would like to start with the details?
Well, I'll start, and we can go back and forth between George and I. First of all, number one, these courses are open to all Montessorians, regardless of affiliation. So we are open to all, and that's extremely important to know and say. This is an organization newly founded and founded on being inclusive, so that we have a place of unity to come together as Montessorians, whatever affiliation we were trained at or came from, etc. So that's number one. And then maybe details. The offerings will run summer, fall, and spring every year. And so the summer is going to be in Houston, Texas, at the Post Oak School high school campus, which is a phenomenal place to see. And it will run for 2 weeks, starting July, coming in and enjoying a reception on the evening of the 7th, July 7th. And then the first week's courses will end the late afternoon of the 13th. And then those that are coming in for week 2 will come in the evening of the 12th and have a reception, join everybody on the 13th, and then they will end late afternoon on the 18th. So those 2 weeks are the offerings. I'm going to pass it ball to George.
Well, yeah, and it's, I know it's a lot to sort of take in, particularly without a visual, but the way it works is there are 2 weeks, but you choose either week or both weeks. Mm-hmm. And in the first week, the 2 choices within that first week are either the AMI Administrator Certificate Program or a Strategic Planning module. And then in the second week, there's one offering, which Kathy can tell you more about. That's a module from Whole School Leadership. So there's a lot going on in those 2 weeks, a lot of opportunity to choose to go either week or both weeks and really get exposure to a lot of good information. And I might mention too that not coincidentally, at the end of the second week is the start of the AMI USA Montessori Community Retreat in Houston. We've got folks that are able to come in for the WSL program and then stay on for the administrators retreat, which is a really wonderful weekend of cool stuff going on with a lot of heads of school. And again, as Kathy said, it's important to mention that we're really ecumenical here, even though, as many of you probably know, Ma has now joined together with AMI USA. The folks that are in the administrator community, it doesn't matter, just like with these courses, whether you're AMI, AMS, whatever your training, your background is, this is really aimed at, running better schools and becoming better leaders. Mm-hmm. So Kathy, you want to talk about that second week maybe?
Yeah, sure. So one thing to point out before I do that is that both week 1 participants and week 2 participants will join together on Saturday, July 13th. And that day is dedicated to an anti-bias, anti-racism, equity, and inclusion program. And it's going to be taught by Dr. Valeda Wise from Johns Hopkins. She's a Montessorian and a PhD in this field. Spent a lot of years running Montessori schools, but is now at this consultant level. And so we want to dedicate considerable time year after year after year to our work historically in our country, and of course the bias that exists around the world. So that's a very special day, and it's it's actually required as part of our program. So if you come to it, you go to that. It's really important. And then going into week 2, whole school leadership, the course that has been designed that is so amazing and valuable that I've been talking about is a 6-module course. We designed it so that you can drop into a module and just take it for its value, or you can dedicate yourself to one session after another, completing all 6 modules. Or you can do a module or 2 every few years and come back in a few years and take a couple more. They are each at will, independent of each other, but they each tie very deeply to each other as well. And they take you from a focus on transforming oneself as a leader to transforming the community that you work in, to transforming society. And that last segment, the modules 5 and 6, focus on taking all that we've done together and applying it to our local and our larger world. So there's a piece of the role that we play in our work that has to do with our impact on society. So we go from self to community to society. And there's a tremendous amount of practical know-how built in. It's called applied learning. And you can run right back to school and plug it in and use it immediately. And then there's a very deep level of understanding, scientifically and philosophically, in terms of how you implement as well. So you have kind of that 2-pronged theory and practice all the way through. All of this has to do also with change theory and understanding what change is all about. And we all know that it's moving faster than it has ever moved before. So knowing this, having the skills to be able to work in the process of change is really important. I could go on and on, but maybe there's some questions at this point.
I'm looking at the course list. I'm actually going to make sure that I share this with you. It's been in our, or with our members, it's been in our newsletters, but I want to make sure it's attached to this as well, because it's very thorough. And I noticed that you've got, course listings and all of that. So it's a very clear syllabus of what's going to be happening in that time. Can you, Kathy, talk a little bit about how administrators who are currently running a school can integrate this into their current work of running a school? How do those work hand in hand together?
Okay, so first of all, in the section on the modules on self as leader, leader as self, we work with the tools from Harvard that were developed by Lisa Leahy and Dr. Robert Keegan. Keegan is the theorist who started where Montessori stopped in terms of the continuum of adult development. So it turns out that adults can continue to move through several planes of development that weren't identified because Montessori didn't go that far. And they're vertical in development. They don't have to do with your age. And you may never develop after you become an adult, but hopefully, if you have an understanding of these stages of adult development, then the next step is beginning to work with your teachers, with your staff from that perspective, in terms of how you support them and coach them and evaluate them. So it shifts the perspective of how you're working with your staff. And then it also, the tools that you did on yourself you then can teach your own staff how to do for themselves, so that it gives them a chance to, for example, figure out where I'm stuck and how do I move forward. So there's some wonderful practical tools that Keegan developed that really help us all in our own ability to move past where we're stuck. And that's our professional practice, and that's our personal life. So it's applicable to both. Then going into community, the organizational learning and development world, people get masters and PhDs in that, and they become consultants. And then you might hire one to come to your school or to a company if they have a problem, and they cost a fortune. But what you can do is learn the same the same things and apply them yourself. So if you're having a parent night and you really want to help people grow in trusting each other as a school community so that they can really work together well, there's some wonderful activities that can be used for that purpose. They're targeted for that purpose. How great to learn them so that you can go back and implement them. You don't have to hire a consultant to come in and do that. So those are fabulous skills to learn that are kind of in the camp of organizational development consultants, and they're so easily embraced and taken back to your school that there's no reason why you can't do them yourself. In terms of society, we get much more deeply into the challenges that we have today in society in terms of bias and equity, and how we work with our community to be able to transcend our failures in our society. So that, that's another area where you learn how to conduct the kind of conversations, generative conversations with families, with community, with people that you pull together. How do you do that? So we learn how to do that. And so it's not so scary to try to pull off a really great gathering where people actually begin to make a difference in how they see the world.
Right. We've got a question from Melissa. She's wondering, if you're not able to attend the conferences, are there modules that are offered online in replace of those conferences?
That's a wonderful question. And I would say that the way that the program is set up now, it currently is set up to be on site for 1 week. And then after that week is over, the rest of the course is online through Zoom conferencing. So the Zoom conferencing is set up through Loyola University, and it will engage everyone who has come for that week to continue working, because after you leave the week, you're going to have a lot of homework. And so getting online on Zoom conferencing is what happens for the next 3 months after that. And then the module comes to a completion, and then you get your CEUs for that module. We have talked about a possible future where if people all come together in a cohort, let's say locally in your community, and you pull together a group, I or one of the other associates who trains could get online with you and meet you that way. But it's critical that you have a group of people that you work with. That's a big part of how you really learn.
Right.
So it's not just content, it's the interactions, it's the synergy.
So Kathy, if someone is not able to make the summer modules, so week 1 and week 2, but they're very interested in doing this, and let's say in the future they may be able to attend, are there future dates that are set aside? And if so, can they go along with what's offered throughout the school year as well, or are they on a different timeline?
The fall is going to run Module 1 and Module 2. So people who came through it this summer will get to go on to Module 2, but it will be starting a whole new Module 1 for new people. And there's a couple of other courses that are offered in the fall as well. And that is going to be in DC, Washington, DC, in the Alexandria, Virginia area. So George has the dates on that. It's in October. So it's going online on our website shortly so that you know those exact dates so you could register then. And another thing is that in the spring, in April, there will be again the same thing, Modules 1, Modules 2, and Module 3. And they will be in Seattle. So people on the West Coast and from Asia could come easily to Seattle. And so it'll keep rotating a summer location differently every summer, and then fall, and then spring, so that we get around like that, and you could plan to come at another time.
Yeah, it looks like the first date, I'm still getting all these dates in my head right, but the first date for the fall is October 13th, so right after the holiday weekend there. And then in the spring of 2020 in Seattle, it starts right after Easter.
Yeah.
Perfect.
And the one in Seattle is going to be interesting because I'm also going to conduct a weekend Board of Trustees course in the uniqueness of governing and being a board member of a Montessori school, which has never been done before. And so I think what we all discover in our lives is that board members are fabulous and they have great business background, and some of them have been on many other boards, but they don't really get what it is truly that they are governing a Montessori school. So this is going to be really a helpful program for them, just a couple of days. And you know, the head of the school or other administrators and the board could come. So we're interested in helping in that area too.
Right. And Nicole is excited. She in her neck of the woods. When the info is up, I'll make sure to send that, Nicole. I'll probably post it in our Facebook group rather than send it in email, but I could also include it in our News You Can Use every week. I'll be sure to do that. And I'll also include another link to the course listings and more information that Kathy and George have been talking about. With that being said, George and Kathy, we are running out of time. Any last minute thoughts or ideas or tidbits, tips?
Go online at www.wholeschoolleadership.org, and you will see a lot of what we've talked about. You can dive into it more deeply. And then our contact information is on there. So write to us. We'll write you right back. And come. We welcome you.
Right, absolutely. George, any last thoughts?
No, I wish I was as eloquent as Kathy is about about the whole program, but I'm very excited about it. As I said at the beginning of this, it's something that's going to really help move our Montessori community forward in ways we all need. And so, you know, we hope that many of you can attend.
That's right.
Yay.
Yes. The both of you are such a gift to the Montessori community. And thank you so much for, you know, all the time you've invested, not only in the schools you've worked in, but now to help administrators move forward and help Montessori education be a really strong thought leader in this space where we all know it's very needed. So thank you too for joining us. And again, we'll be following up with some more information, especially about the October offerings and the future ones. But enjoy your day, you two. Thanks again for joining us.
Thank you,
so
Denise.
much.
Bye-bye.
Bye-bye.
Take care.